Amidst the turbulent waters of international trade, a new chapter unfolds in the economic relationship between the United States and Canada. An unexpected turn of events has sent ripples of unease through business circles in both countries. Initially slated for early February, new tariffs were briefly delayed by 30 days following discussions between the leaders of both nations. However, contrary to hopes for a peaceful resolution, the United States has reaffirmed its intention to impose tariffs, prompting an immediate response from Canada. In retaliation, Ottawa has introduced retaliatory duties on goods from the U.S., escalating the already strained relationship. It is against this backdrop that an unexpected move emerges on the chessboard. The U.S. administration has announced a surprise postponement of the imposition of tariffs on the automotive industry for another month. This temporary reprieve provides some relief to the affected sectors but leaves many questions unanswered regarding future trade policies. In the intricate tapestry of international economic relations, unexpected twists and turns sometimes emerge like a bolt from the blue. Recent events involving energy trade between the two neighboring nations serve as a vivid illustration of this unpredictability. After President Donald Trump imposed a 25% tariff on goods imported from Canada, Ontario Premier Doug Ford responded with undisguised determination. Ford, known for his straightforward style, did not mince words when it came to protecting his province's interests. He threatened to cut off electricity exports to the United States, emphasizing Ontario's pivotal role in supplying power to American consumers. They depend on our energy and they need to feel it, Ford declared, adding that aggression should be met with double the force. It is worth noting that Ontario is indeed a major supplier of electricity to states like New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. In 2023, the province provided power to approximately 1.5 million American homes. Ford did not miss the opportunity to highlight this dependence, stating, "If they want to try and screw Ontario, I'm going to do everything, including cutting off their energy, and I do it with a smile on my face." Such a statement, coming from a high-ranking official, could not fail to cause concern in American political circles. After all, energy security is one of the cornerstones of any nation's national security. In New York State, developments in the energy sector are being closely monitored with concern. Governor Kathy Hochul expressed cautious optimism, believing that the long-standing ties between New York and the Canadian province of Ontario would serve as a reliable buffer against rash decisions. However, the specter of impending electricity tariff increases is becoming increasingly clear, especially for those areas where energy infrastructure is critically dependent on supplies from Canada. Economists warn that rising electricity prices could trigger a chain reaction, increasing production costs for local businesses. As a result, goods produced in the state risk losing competitiveness in the market, inevitably leading to job losses and the outflow of skilled workers. The recent shift in Donald Trump's rhetoric is also indicative. After the missed opportunity to import Canadian electricity was used to demonstrate U.S. energy independence, the politician unexpectedly advocated for the resumption of a large-scale oil pipeline project designed to connect Canadian oil fields to American refineries. This move reveals the duality of Trump's position. While positioning himself as a tough negotiator with allies, he is forced to recognize that the U.S. energy sector cannot do without Canadian resources. Such inconsistency breeds new disputes and disagreements. Over the past months, Trump's rhetoric has undergone a significant evolution from a categorical rejection of Canadian oil to active support for projects aimed at strengthening energy ties between the two countries, such as the infamous Keystone XL pipeline. At a press briefing, sharp criticism was leveled at the Biden administration for its decision to halt the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. The speaker emphasized the contrast with his administration's policies, stating that the country is now experiencing a period of prosperity and expressed confidence in the need to resume the project. He appealed to the company involved in the construction of the pipeline to return to the U.S. and continue work despite what he considered unfair treatment. It was noted that the Trump administration would have offered more favorable terms, including rapid approval and prompt commencement of work. In the event of this company's refusal, he admitted the possibility of engaging another contractor, emphasizing the commitment to completing the construction of Keystone XL. This announcement has reignited the debate over the feasibility of resuming the project. Supporters argue that it could create thousands of jobs and strengthen the continent's energy security. Opponents, on the other hand, point to the serious environmental risks associated with potential oil spills and increased carbon emissions. We should also not forget the regulatory and logistical complexities. TC Energy, the company originally involved in the project, has already dismantled some of the equipment and refocused its operations. These factors create additional obstacles to a possible resumption of the Keystone XL pipeline construction. In a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, President Trump confirmed plans to impose 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico starting on March 3, 2025. He emphasized that everything is going according to plan and the tariffs will be implemented on schedule. As the specified date approaches, Trump has intensified his rhetoric, stating that the U.S. will charge these countries exactly what they charge on American goods. In response, the Canadian government is developing a comprehensive plan of countermeasures to protect national businesses, labor resources, and the economy as a whole. These measures will take effect immediately upon the imposition of U.S. tariffs and will remain in place until the restrictions are lifted. Canada is demonstrating a firm commitment to defending its economic interests while striving for a diplomatic resolution to the trade conflict. As part of its strategy to protect its economic interests, Canada plans to introduce reciprocal 25% tariffs on imports from the U.S. totaling $155 billion. This strategy will be implemented in 2 phases to ensure an effective and balanced response to the actions of the American side. The first phase of countermeasures is already on the horizon, covering a substantial volume of American exports estimated at approximately $30 billion. Key sectors of the U.S. economy are being targeted: agriculture, with its juicy steaks and fresh fruits; the consumer goods sector, offering everything from washing machines to lipstick; and industry, supplying materials for construction and manufacturing. In particular, Canadian shelves may face higher prices for American beef, pork, and poultry. Dairy and fresh vegetable lovers will also feel the changes in prices. Duties will also affect processed foods such as breakfast cereals and soft drinks. Connoisseurs of spirits who prefer bourbon or Tennessee whiskey will likely have to reconsider their preferences, as will fans of American beer and wine. In the consumer goods segment, expect price increases on household appliances, washing machines, refrigerators, and dishwashers, as well as cosmetics and personal care products. The fashion industry will also be affected, as duties will also affect clothing. Industrial materials will not escape the trade war either. Steel, aluminum, polymers, rubber, wood, and paper will also be subject to new tariffs, which may affect the cost of many goods manufactured in Canada. The second phase, which is scheduled to take effect on March 25, 2025, after a period of public consultation, promises to further expand the scope of duties, affecting imports from the U.S. worth approximately $125 billion. The imposition of tariffs on passenger cars, trucks, and a wide range of auto parts, from batteries to tires and electronics, will deal a significant blow to the automotive industry. The aerospace and defense sectors will also feel the consequences of the new duties, affecting American aircraft parts and maintenance services. Agricultural goods are also being targeted. Corn, soybeans, wheat, rice, and processed meat products may face trade barriers. In response to these actions, Canada is considering restricting exports of strategically important minerals such as lithium, nickel, and cobalt to American companies. This measure could become part of a broader package of countermeasures. In addition to tariff measures, Ottawa is exploring other ways to protect the national economy. The possibility of banning American firms from participating in government procurement at the federal and provincial levels is being considered. Thus, Canadian businesses will have priority access to government contracts, which will simultaneously be a stimulus for the domestic economy and a response to U.S. trade policy, which is perceived as unfair. In response to economic pressure, Canada is considering imposing export restrictions on key resources, including supplies of oil and natural gas to American refineries. Provincial authorities are also taking action. For example, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario is preparing to remove alcoholic products from the United States from its store shelves to support domestic producers. These steps demonstrate a desire to use economic leverage while minimizing negative consequences for Canadian businesses and consumers. The escalation of tensions is largely due to recent statements by Trump directed at Canada. In recent months, the former president's rhetoric has taken on a blatantly confrontational character. After previously dismissing Canadian imports, he has now moved on to direct attacks, repeatedly implying that Canada should become the 51st state of the United States. In his posts on Truth Social, Trump claims that we pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. It seems that some political figures are questioning why the United States cannot do without Canadian resources and products. It is argued that America has inexhaustible energy reserves, its own automobile manufacturing, and a surplus of timber. Such statements are accompanied by suggestions that without generous external support, Canada would supposedly be unable to survive as an independent state. In this regard, there are calls for Canada to become the 51st state of the United States, promising Canadians lower taxes and increased military protection as well as the abolition of customs duties. These statements have caused a wide resonance on the international stage as they demonstrate an unprecedented willingness to use economic pressure against a close ally. At the same time, the rhetoric towards Canada ranges from complete denial of its value to recognition of its importance for U.S. energy security. On the one hand, it is argued that the American economy does not need Canadian imports. On the other hand, an attractive offer is being put forward for Canada to join the United States, which would supposedly lead to the abolition of tariffs, lower taxes, and stronger defense capabilities. This approach suggests that Canada is seen not as an equal partner, but rather as an economic resource that could be absorbed into the United States. Despite talk of expanding state borders, Donald Trump continues to actively use tariffs as a tool of pressure. His statement that Canada has long pursued unfair trade policies serves as justification for imposing 25% duties on most Canadian goods. At the same time, tariffs on energy remain at 10%, which is explained by the need to protect the American labor market and ensure national security. According to Trump, these measures will force Canada to more actively combat illegal immigration and fentanyl trafficking. He claims that without such tariffs, the United States is effectively subsidizing its northern neighbor. The Trump administration presents tariffs not only as a way to achieve more favorable trade terms, but also as a recognition of U.S. dependence on Canadian supplies, which account for a quarter of daily oil imports. The proposal to annex Canada to the United States is not just a rhetorical move, but part of a negotiating strategy. In his viral post on Truth Social, Trump wrote that Canada should become the 51st state, which would provide it with lower taxes and a higher level of security. The northern neighbor of the United States seems to be faced with a choice that threatens to determine the future of Canadian-American relations. Under the slogan, "Our great neighbor will finally begin to contribute its fair share," Washington appears to be offering Ottawa economic integration, effectively raising the issue of joining the U.S. economic structure. The alternative, according to many observers, will be tough protectionist measures and trade tariffs that could seriously damage the Canadian economy. However, such an ultimatum has met with strong rejection in the Canadian political establishment. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, known for his colorful statements, rejected the very idea of absorption, comparing it to trying to throw snowballs at hell. Conservative opposition leader Pierre Poilievre, in turn, stressed that Canada will never become the 51st state, insisting that the country is a strong, independent, and sovereign power. A wave of patriotic fervor swept across the country. Canadian citizens, expressing their disagreement with a possible absorption, began wearing hats with the inscription "Canada is not for sale," which became a kind of response to statements from across the ocean. Behind the scenes of a business forum, Justin Trudeau, unaware that the microphone was on, shared his thoughts with business representatives. He expressed confidence that the U.S. administration is well aware of Canada's reserves of critical minerals, hinting that this factor may be the driving force behind the desire to absorb the country and turn it into the 51st state. Such comments reflect the deep concern of the Canadian leadership regarding the preservation of the country's sovereignty and potential long-term tensions in relations with the United States. The question of the future of these relations, therefore, remains open, and further developments will be closely monitored in both Ottawa and Washington. Let's pause for a moment. If the presented material is of interest, would the viewer consider expressing their appreciation? A simple click of the like button can significantly expand the circle of those who can access this information. Comments containing reflections or critical remarks will provide invaluable assistance. Thank you for your attention, and we invite you to dive back into the topic. Energy cooperation between the United States and Canada has a rich history and strategic importance. Canada has consistently held the position of leading foreign supplier of crude oil to the U.S., which is due to both geographical proximity and a developed pipeline transportation system. A significant number of American refineries are designed specifically to work with heavy, sour crude oil, which is the predominant product of the Canadian oil sands. According to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, crude oil imports from Canada to the United States have reached unprecedented heights, exceeding 4 million barrels per day. This impressive flow accounts for approximately 60% of the total crude oil imported by the U.S., which clearly demonstrates the deep economic relationship uniting the two countries. In addition to oil flows, Canadian natural gas exports play an indispensable role in the U.S. energy system, especially for states whose infrastructure is inextricably linked to supplies from abroad. Trade relations between the two countries in the oil sector are characterized by enormous volumes and the critical importance of Canadian heavy oil, which is a key raw material for many American refineries. In 2023, Canadian oil supplies to the U.S. reached their peak, amounting to an impressive 4.42 million barrels per day, which clearly demonstrates the degree of dependence of the American economy on its northern neighbor. Canadian oil, as a rule, is heavier and more sulfurous and is offered on the market at a lower price than light grades, but its unique composition makes it indispensable for specialized American refineries that are unable to switch to other sources of raw materials. The pricing of Canadian oil, which is benchmarked against Western Canadian Select (WCS), reflects both its specific characteristics and geographical factors. WCS trades at a discount to West Texas Intermediate (WTI) due to its increased sulfur content, but its constant availability on the market is crucial for the smooth operation of American refineries. Natural gas plays an equally important role in the U.S.-Canada energy partnership. A powerful network of pipelines, like a circulatory system, connects Canadian gas fields with American consumers, providing stable and profitable supplies. Approximately 8.5 billion cubic feet of Canadian gas enters the U.S. daily, which clearly demonstrates the scale of the economic ties between the two countries. This flow of energy plays a vital role in heating American homes, maintaining the operation of industrial enterprises, and generating electricity, especially in the winter months when demand reaches peak values. Accessibility and geographical proximity make Canadian gas a priority source of energy for the U.S. despite the growth of its own production. The interconnectedness of North American energy markets ensures that Canadian natural gas continues to play the role of a reliable supplier for the United States, strengthening the stability of the energy system of the entire region. Cooperation between the two countries is not limited to oil and gas, also covering electricity and key industrial resources. Electricity trade, although smaller in volume than fossil fuel transactions, plays an indispensable role in ensuring the stability of power grids, especially for the northeastern states of America. Canadian provinces, such as Quebec and Ontario, supply significant amounts of electricity to the energy systems of New York, New England, Ohio, and Michigan, providing invaluable assistance during periods of peak consumption or in the event of emergencies. These cross-border energy flows are becoming a guarantor of regional energy security, providing a kind of insurance during periods of increased load. But electricity is only part of Canada's contribution to the U.S. energy system. Canada supplies a wide range of critical minerals, uranium, and other resources needed for energy production and industrial processes in the United States. These materials support strategically important sectors such as nuclear energy and stimulate the development of new technologies, further expanding the horizons of bilateral energy trade. This diversified portfolio of energy resources underscores the deep economic ties between the United States and Canada, which extend far beyond conventional fossil fuels. For more than a decade, the fate of the Keystone XL pipeline remained at the epicenter of heated debates involving the political, environmental, and economic aspects of North American life. Conceived in 2008 by TC Energy, formerly known as TransCanada, this ambitious project was designed to connect the oil sands of Alberta, Canada, with refineries in the United States. Supporters of the Keystone XL project pointed to obvious economic benefits and increased energy security, while opponents expressed serious concerns about its potential environmental impact and regulatory compliance. The Keystone Pipeline system, which has been in operation since 2010, is an impressive network that transports crude oil from the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin of Alberta to various destinations in the United States, including refineries in Illinois and Texas, as well as storage facilities in Oklahoma. Keystone XL, or KXL, was intended to be a major expansion of the existing system involving the construction of a new pipeline approximately 1,930 kilometers long. This route was intended to be more direct and efficient, significantly increasing capacity by transporting an additional 830,000 barrels of oil per day from Hardisty, Alberta to Steel City, Nebraska. The Keystone XL pipeline expansion was originally conceived as a solution to an urgent problem, simplifying the transportation of crude oil to refineries along the Gulf Coast and eliminating logistical bottlenecks that were hampering the industry. However, this ambitious project immediately found itself at the epicenter of fierce controversy, fueled by serious environmental and social concerns. The main stumbling block was the technology for extracting crude oil from the oil sands of Alberta, Canada. This process is known to be associated with significantly higher greenhouse gas emissions than traditional drilling methods. Studies show that emissions from oil sands can be as much as 81% higher than standard crude oil, raising legitimate concerns in the context of global climate change. An equally important argument of the project opponents was the pipeline route, which runs through environmentally vulnerable regions, in particular the sandhills of Nebraska and the Ogallala Aquifer, one of the largest sources of fresh water in North America. Environmentalists and local residents fear that a potential oil spill in the area could have catastrophic consequences for drinking water and agriculture, creating an unacceptable environmental risk. Indigenous peoples have also raised their voices in protest, pointing to the danger hanging over their ancestral lands, which hold traces of ancestors and places of spiritual power. Native American tribes have firmly stated that the implementation of the project would be a gross violation of treaty obligations and perpetuate the historically established practice of infringing on their rights. Legal battles initiated by Native Americans have become a significant factor in delaying the pipeline's approval process in the regulatory labyrinths. The political fate of Keystone XL resembled a roller coaster, reflecting the volatility of political priorities inherent in different administrations of the United States. In 2015, President Barack Obama vetoed the project, citing environmental risks and an unwavering commitment to policies to reduce carbon emissions. However, in 2017, President Donald Trump overturned this decision, signing decrees aimed at accelerating the approval of the pipeline construction, emphasizing its role in creating new jobs and strengthening the country's energy independence. Nevertheless, on his first day in office in January 2021, President Joe Biden revoked the pipeline construction permit, bringing this decision in line with his administration's priorities in combating climate change and supporting renewable energy initiatives. The Biden administration's final decision led TC Energy to officially abandon the Keystone XL project in June 2021, halting construction and dismantling existing facilities. Now, with Donald Trump openly advocating for the pipeline's revival, the political battles surrounding Keystone XL are reigniting. Trump's stance reflects widespread concerns about energy security and economic stability, particularly amid the turbulence in global oil markets. Supporters of the project's revival argue that it could create jobs, strengthen North American energy independence, and provide long-term economic benefits. However, opponents remain steadfast in their environmental objections, viewing the project as an environmental threat. The question of how feasible it is to resurrect the pipeline remains open. This would require reobtaining permits, which would undoubtedly lead to new lawsuits from environmental organizations and indigenous communities. Furthermore, TC Energy has already abandoned the project, meaning that a new entity willing to overcome all obstacles would have to take on its implementation. In light of these difficulties, the prospects for reviving the Keystone XL project remain a subject of intense debate and a complex knot in U.S.-Canada relations. As both countries navigate trade disputes, energy security issues, and a changing geopolitical landscape, the future of their economic alliance will depend on their ability to strike a balance between national interests and environmental commitments. Whether through the revival of large-scale infrastructure projects or through cooperation in alternative energy, the further evolution of relations between the United States and Canada will require careful consideration of all pros and cons. What are your thoughts on this? Share your thoughts in the comments. This concludes our broadcast. Thank you for your attention and participation. We sincerely appreciate you being with us today. If our materials resonated with you or inspired reflection, be sure to show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel to stay up to date on new publications and be part of our community. Your support means a lot to us. We also offer you another video from our channel which you can see on the screen. We hope you enjoy it.